In order to help you with the weight auto calculations, we've made an extensive help article that walks you through the different options, including a flow chart that shows you which weight auto calculation mode you would like to use. So this is based on what your weight data is within your BOM. So if you have percentages, it's pretty straightforward. Go ahead and use our percentages area for your material percent by weights of, so the presence of your chemicals in your materials, use that material percent by weight column. For the amount of each material in a product, use the product percent by weight column. But you can go ahead and use this percentages. Once we get into weights, that's where it gets a little bit more interesting. And the first question is always, does it include absolute weights, or is it data about the quantity of each component and then the unit weight of that component? If it includes quantities and unit weights, you'll follow this piece, and if it includes total weight, you'll follow this piece. Similarly, in the actual material dropdown, I'm going to pull that up right here. For the auto calculation mode, if it's a quantity and unit weight calculation, you'll use these two. And if it's a weight absolute data within your BOM, you'll use these two. And then you'll see that use substance rows for summing total weight matches use substance rows for summing total weight. So basically these four options are whether you have weights or quantity and unit weights, and then whether you should take that information from the substance row data or the absolute row data. So we'll get much clearer as we walk through the examples. So this flow chart just walks you through those two decisions. If you use quantity and unit weights, then the next question is the weight data at the substance level or the overall higher component level. And if they're at the substance level, you use the substance rows. Otherwise, you use the absolute quantity and unit weight entered. Similarly, for the absolute weights, if they're at the substance row level, you use the absolute weights. Otherwise, weight absolute with the substance rows. Otherwise, you'll use the weight absolute with the absolute weights. So for our first example, we'll show a product BOM, and it is going to represent a cup. This is, again, a really simple example to be able to, for you to imagine your product and how you would handle the data within your product. So we've got that cup body that's made out of two chemicals and the cup handle that's made out of two chemicals. As you can see here, the subcomponent weight does not add up to the overall part weight. Similarly with the handle, subcomponents do not add up to the overall percent. And that's to help us demonstrate the difference between the substance mode and the overall absolute weight mode. So we're going to go ahead and import this BOM. We're going to choose the file, attach it. And for our auto calculation mode, we're going to go ahead and start with the substance rows. And we're going to go ahead and create this product. It automatically matches up our fields. We can save and view. So as you can see here, the product percent by weight for the overall weight is 250% because it has summed the total weight only from these substance rows. And so if you're putting in a BOM that doesn't have component level weights, you should use this setting. Now, if you go to options, you can change your auto calculation mode. So we're going to switch this from substance rows for summing total weights to absolute weights for summing total weights. And as you can see here, the component weights now make up 80% of the product, 23% of the product, and these product percent by weights of the substances are much smaller, representing the overall weight being taken from these overall rows. So this is much more useful if those component weights are correct, and maybe you know about some of the chemicals, but not all of the chemicals in the product. You'll want to use this setting to be able to correctly roll up those weights. One thing you might have caught while we were doing this, if your overall component weight adds up based on your substance weights, then it actually doesn't matter which of those two settings you use, because either way, you'll add up to the same total weight and the product percent by weight will be correct. So next, we're going to switch to the quantity unit weight example. So it's going to be a similar decision where we first have to figure out whether it's absolute weight or quantity unit weight. So I'll pull up this product BOM and we can take a look and see that there's quantity and unit weights. So this represents a notebook that has some kind of a plastic cover and some kind of a coating over it. So you can see there's some pages, 100 pages actually, with a unit weight of 1 gram each. Then you have your overall cover with 35 gram weight, and then let's say there might be some molded shapes that are going on top of this cover that are made of a different plastic that have another unit weight. So we'll go ahead and import this BOM. As you can see, the weights are at the substance level, so we're going to go ahead and use the auto calculation mode of quantities unit weights, use substance rows. So I'm going to name this notebook. I'm going to attach that file. And there's, we're using the first tab, so we're going to leave the Excel tab to import blank. We're going to save and view this product. And so you can see that it's added up these weights, calculated the overall product percent by weight, and now we know the product percent of each of these components. And that way, when we go ahead and do a report, we can create this declare label, and you'll see that those product percent by weights of the product will be correct here as well. And it asks us for a chemical name because this is a custom substance. And so we can go ahead and enter that name, and then it would be ready to submit for declare. Finally, we're going to talk about material relative auto calculation modes. So this is only available on import, and this is specifically to be used if your material supplier has maybe given you the amount of weights that they use in the product that adds up to more than the overall weight of your product. So maybe they gave you their exact formulation where they add 100 pounds of this submaterial and 100 pounds of that submaterial. And obviously then that is molded into some kind of a part for your product, and let's say that part is only going to be a pound. If we use these other auto calculation modes, that will not roll up correctly because those substance weights are much larger than the component weight. So we need to use this material relative auto calculation mode. It seems to be having a bit of trouble opening. There we go. So we can see that there's component A and component B. They each have their weights that they're used, and there's this overall weight of component A. Then component B, similarly, a bunch of these chemicals are added at different weights. And then the component B has an overall weight. So we're going to go ahead and import this as a material. We're going to call this material 1. We're going to add the source file. And we're going to use the material weights, calculated material percent by weight from the weight. And so we're going to go ahead and create this material, go ahead and leave these column headers as they are. And you can see that it's calculated the material percent by weight for each of these different components and each of the different substances. So then we'll go ahead and take this material and place it into a product. So let's say we have this sample product here, and it has one material that's made of this plastic, and I'm going to go ahead and insert a material above this selected row and insert the material 1A that we've just added. And we're going to make that, so right now this material 2 is 100%, so we're going to make that one 50%. Oh, we are using weight calculations, so we're going to make this material 30%, and we're going to make this material 30 as well, which you can see is much smaller than the overall weights of each of the subcomponents of this material. And so when we do that, it automatically calculates that product percent by weight, the weight of each of these components within the product. And then when we go ahead and report out to something like declare, we can see that it's correctly calculated these overall total percents of the product. So that is how you use that material relative auto calculation mode, and that's the general overview of all the auto calculation modes.